Hello everyone. As promised, today we are looking at those walking bass structures that we talked about last week and putting them into an exercise context. We're talking about those circle of fifths exercises that we did in the previous exercise video. And before we were talking about the standard bluegrass bass approaches for a two feel. We had the repeated root, we had the fifth approach, and we had the third approach. Today it's getting a little bit more complicated, and we're talking about some of the structures that were used in long neck bottle last week. So we have an arpeggiated approach, a scalar approach, and a chromatic approach. As a refresher, the arpeggiated approaches are utilizing the sixth note of each major chord, so 1, 3, 5, and 6, and kind of going in two different directions, up and down. The scalar approach is using 1, 2, 3, and 5 of each chord on the way up, and then 1 flat 7, 6, and 5 on the way down, which we heard in the transcription. And the chromatic approach is utilizing 1, 2, flat 3, 3 on the way up, and on the way down I decided to do 1, 6, 5, flat 5, and then the 4. And if you don't know what that means, it's not a huge deal. I will go through it and you'll hear each of them. Those numbers are referring to the scale degrees of each chord, essentially. So let's look at this arpeggiated one first. So if everyone recalls, our C major arpeggio is C6. So that's going to be C, E, G, and A, right? And the way I'm going to use that is, because I'm going up to F, I'm actually going to do C, E, A, G, which goes right to F perfectly. So in numbers, that's 1, 3, 6, 5, and then 1 again for the next chord. On a chord that's going down, like this F chord, I'll reverse it to make the melodic motion a little cleaner. We're going to go F, D, C, A. And in numbers, that's 1, 6, 5, 3. So 1, 3, 5, and 6 are the chord tones and the scale degrees. Kind of this means the same thing in this context that we're using. And they can kind of be moved around. They don't all have to be in that same order every time to have an arpeggiated sound in a walking bass line. So I'll just play through this really quickly. It gets pretty complicated in the middle. You know, you're getting into that G sharp, C sharp, F sharp territory with the chords. Obviously, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to break it down for you. Slow down the video if you want to learn visually. Notations there if you want to learn that way. So here's the arpeggiated sound all the way through the circle fifths. 1, 2, 3, 4. There it is all the way around. And I should mention, if you haven't checked out that first exercise video, it may be helpful. You'll get the chord motion under your belt before you start trying to dig into these notes, which are getting a little bit more complicated with the structures we're using. So that's the arpeggiated sound. Again, we're going 1, 3, 6, 5 going up, and then 1, 6, 5, 3 going down. You can move it around. Now let's check out the scalar approach here. The way, the chords that are moving downwards are really common, in a walking bass. You're hearing, right, that's using that flat 7 note, 1, flat 7, 6, 5. On the way up, I decided it would be smooth to use 1, 2, 3, and 5. So that sounds like this. notes going up and coming down. So you'll hear both of those used. And yeah, again, that flat 7 note isn't in the scale per se of these chords. It's a borrowed note, which is why, for those of you with the notation, you'll see that accidental showing up earlier than anything else. Those flat notes will be really clear in that first system. Yeah, at the same time, it's not chromatic because there's no consecutive half steps. It's just an altered note. So it's all part of the scalar approach, and I'll play it for you now. Sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you get into the pattern of this, it really makes a lot of sense, right? You know what it sounds like going up, you know what it sounds like going down, and it's pretty much smooth and effortless through the entire thing. It's just a matter of, knowing where to place your fingers and knowing what chord comes next, which eventually should become second nature. And last but not least, we got this chromatic approach. This one's going to sound kind of maybe the most slithery is maybe a good word. It's kind of like a snake slithering around, and has a real nice jazzy sound to it. Again, chromatic means 2 or more consecutive half steps. So right off the bat, you're hearing 1, 2, flat 3, 3. 2 to flat 3 is 1, flat 3 to 3 is another, and then that 3 going to 4 is another half step. So 3 in a row there. And then on the way down, you got 1, 6, 5, flat 5, and going to 4, which becomes the new 1, obviously, on the new chord change. Again, if any of this is confusing, send me a message, I'll clarify. So the half steps there, 5 to flat 5 is 1, flat 5 to 4, or the new 1 when the chord changes, is your second. So you got 2 there. Yeah, really cool, slithery sound. I'll play it for you real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. At that tempo, it maybe even sounds more like an elephant sneaking through the jungle or something. I don't know if they have elephants in jungles, but whatever. The metaphor is clear. It's slow enough that it doesn't really sound like a snake. But get it up to tempo, it will sound like a snake. It's sounding a little bit more like a smaller animal at that point. So, yeah. These are really fun, everyone. And they're a bit like the last circle of fifths exercise. It's kind of mind-bending. It'll take some time to get used to. But slow down that video and utilize that as a reference. Even for those of you who have the notation, it's good to, kind of look and as well as read. So, yeah, have fun applying these to pretty much every chord situation imaginable. And shoot any questions you have my way. And check out the first circle of fifths exercises if you haven't already. So thanks so much, everyone, and I'll see you next week.